in conversation with the Industrial Development Corporation.
18 after 8, we've been promising you a conversation about manufacturing in conversation with the Industrial Development Corporation. And the idea is to discuss growth, sustainability, but also opportunities in the manufacturing sector. As we've already told you, this contributes about 14.4% to GDP and is a very important sector of the economy. I'm pleased to tell you that we are joined by Mark Goliath, who's the IDC's Acting Divisional Executive in Manufacturing. Welcome to 702 Breakfast.
Good morning, Bongani, and good morning to your listeners.
I hope you didn't have far to drive.
No, luckily I stay within a 5-kilometer radius.
No, part of the joke, of course, is the IDC is right next door to our building. So welcome. Your reflections on the manufacturing indaba that was held in Johannesburg last week. Perhaps let's start there.
Bongani, I think I've been attending the manufacturing indaba for the last few years. And this year, there definitely was a very broad spectrum of participants from across Africa, which is a very interesting development, and I think feeds into this African continental free trade area that's now starting its implementation phase. There's definitely a sense of positivity that industrialization is key to Africa's growth. And many of the political will from countries is to start and grow the sector. So to me, it was a positive. There are obviously indeed challenges that were put on the table, but nothing that can't be overcome.
All right, let's bring it local. What is the state of local manufacturing?
Over the last decade, we've seen a decrease in manufacturing capacity within the country. And in the main, that has been due to a lack of competitiveness as importation has flooded into the country with manufactured goods. And we've seen this across a wide spectrum of manufacturing sectors. I think we're at a stage now, and this is where potentially COVID has had a positive impact, where nearshoring has become more opportune in this present time. And we've seen a stabilization, and we're starting to see growth within the manufacturing sector. Obviously, things such as lack of consistent electricity has played its role. More recently, access to the ports or long lead times at the ports has a negative impact, both for importation of raw materials as well as exportation of finished goods. So there are challenges. But in the main, the opportunities still exist. And if we can resolve these, then I think the South African manufacturing industry will see the uptick that it needs.
Look, we've sort of turned the corner around the electricity challenges. I think logistics remains something that we still need to tick in terms of that box. But deindustrialization has certainly been a threat to manufacturing, but to the broader economy. You only have to look at people like ArcelorMittal, for example, and the challenges that they have faced. Is this being addressed with enough urgency, not just in terms of logistics and electricity, but looking at what it means to manufacturing?
I think so. Fortunately or unfortunately, I sit in many a discussion around the urgency of these, both at a governmental level and as well as at an IDC perspective and as well as the manufacturing industry perspective. Just last week, 2 weeks ago, we were at SA Auto Week. And one of the key factors at SA Auto Week was around movement of goods from manufacturing sites to the ports and the plans that are being put in place to resolve that with the manufacturing industry. So there's a concerted effort from all parties to act speedily to resolve these.
If we talk about supporting growth, I mean, I think we need a wider conversation in terms of really all hands on deck, if you will, right? As a country, how does everyone come together, and what role does the IDC play in supporting that growth?
Well, IDC at its core is a supporter of, or supports the implementation of government policy through the financing, through its industrial policy action plans. And we are key to delivering on that mandate. So from an IDC specific perspective, we definitely have more appetite than what commercial funders would have to take that additional risk right at the start. I'm not saying that we would fund every project, but where projects have viability, we definitely want to be part of the seed capital that goes into that. And to date, over the last 10 years, we've invested approximately 80 billion in the manufacturing sector. And that has been in the main within the South African context. We have limited investments outside of South Africa at this point in time, but we're hoping to really expand on that. I think where South Africans in general can play a very active role is on the simple things. We have manufacturing industries that supply clothing, as an example. And I know proudly South Africa tries to do a lot of work to say buy local.
Buy local, yeah.
So that's how we can, as a consumerist nation, really try and stimulate that.
Let me be naughty and put you on the spot, but in a good way, In a sense, the IDC has been a good news story. You talk about implementing government policy, but it's been one of the institutions that has been able to weather the many storms that we've all encountered and dealt with as a country in the last 15 or so years. And that's a story that needs to be told.
I agree. The IDC has a rich history of over the last 80 years now. I think the institution is just over 80 years old, of contributing positively to the economic growth of the country. And with that comes the expectation that we should be doing more, because we have cemented this leading role in the various sectors we play an active part in. So I think we are going through a transitionary phase now with, the new incoming ministry or shareholder is really looking at what the industrial policy action plans should be and what's actionable and really what should the priorities be. And the IDC is refocusing.
Well, you mentioned the African Continental Free Trade Area, and certainly there'll be opportunities for investment and scalability, I suppose, and exposure even to the rest of the continent. I appreciate your time. Mark Goliath here from the Industrial Development Corporation, the acting divisional executive for manufacturing. Launched in 2012, the Manufacturing Competitiveness Program was established by the IDC to support existing manufacturing enterprises through interventions to improve competitiveness in manufacturing. The idea is to encourage manufacturers to upgrade production facilities, but also to help sustain employment in the process. As such, the IDC has adopted several bold and ambitious developmental targets, including increased funding for value chains with the highest potential for sustainable, job-rich industrial development. Visit idc.co.za to learn